Welcome back to Newsmaker Live, and thank you very much for staying tuned to the program. We're discussing sexual abuse, and it is something that we shy away from, as I said at the top of the show. But we have two brave young ladies here with us, Suyen Dathon and Velika Lawrence. They're part of ProSafe. This is a new initiative for St. Lucia, and they have a big program coming up on the 14th of February, the Day of Love, Valentine's Day, at Derek Walker Square. We'll get into that later on in the program, but we're just discussing sexual abuse, the anatomy of abuse. We're discussing, just signs that might point to abuse within your household, within your community, within your church even, and other spaces that you occupy. And I'm so happy that these two young ladies, beautiful young ladies, are here with us to discuss this issue, because it is so very prevalent in our society. Yet we find a way and a reason to shy away from discussing it and dealing seriously with sexual abuse and the effects of sexual abuse on our children and on our society. Now, we're talking about culture. Culture and the society. Do you believe that our culture, as easygoing, relaxed Caribbean people, increases the potential for sexual abuse? Or what kind of effect do you think that our culture as it is promotes sexual abuse?
I think we in our culture believe that we sort of accept the rape myths. So she was dressed wrong, she had too much to drink, she went out with you, so therefore. And because everybody in society says that, if somebody gets, and I've heard it on the radio, well, what were you doing walking at that time of night? We live in the Caribbean. We do not have yellow cabs. I cannot hail a cab and take it from point A to point B. If I get off work at 10 o'clock, I have to take a bus from one point to the other and get off and walk. It does not mean because I'm on the road at that time of night that I'm inviting somebody to violate me. It doesn't mean that if I wear a short skirt that it's okay for you to violate me. It doesn't mean that if I'm too intoxicated that it's okay for you to violate me. Because I could not say no, that means I said yes. And I think because a lot of people believe that that's what happens and it's okay, we perpetuate the cycle of abuse.
And so Sue's speaking to the myths and the victim blaming and the entitlement theories that are there and persistent in our society, seemingly and acceptably so among our men. We want to remember that it happens to both sexes and all sexes. But then I want to go a little further back into our culture, into our history, and into our psyche, into slavery, into inbreeding, into everything that is in and around that sort of internal dynamic within our home, within ourselves, within our society, where I won't tell on this person because I'll get punished if I stand up for myself. Somehow, if I do,
it's not my business, which
right,
is the common theme. It's
not my business. Don't be an informer. don't stand up for what's right. Don't tell the truth. Don't do the right thing. Don't try to really understand. Man up, whatever that means.
Get over it.
Get over it.
You're still worrying about that. That happened so long ago.
Yeah. Or that girl. That's what men do. That happens to me all the time. There's even that where you admit it. You know it's going on, but what more do you expect? You have to eat it. This type of things that happens in our colloquial terms, in our language, in our jargon, within ourselves, and it's acceptable on that level.
But also there is this level of protectionism. You find that in all levels of the society. You have the incest, the abuse going on within people in the church ranks. People who should be up there in church that everyone else looks up to, or they look up to. They involved in some sort of abuse. I'm not saying that all of them, but there are cases, and very many cases, but then people are protected for one reason or another, whether it is to not tarnish the image of the church. You have people in other
Or if they're funding some
business,
important project or
you know.
political something.
It comes back to the whole thing of, and I think this is specific just to sexual assault, where the victim deserves it or it's okay. Because your house was burglared, right? And anybody would understand you're being upset and you're getting an alarm system and guard dogs and a gun. It will be okay because you've been violated, and that will be okay for you. But for a survivor who's been abused, it's not okay for you to take any steps. It's not even okay for you to reflect on it.
Yeah.
You must roll over, get over it, and move on. And it's what's the word? It is unacceptable, and it's unbelievable that that is what is accepted in our society. Because one would believe that, especially when it happens to children, I'm not saying that when it happens to people that are older, it's okay, but children are innocent. And so you'd want to believe that if your child is abused, or you know some child that's being abused, that it doesn't matter what that person's status is, that you would want them to, one, be punished, and two, the child to get help. And by doing both of those things, you'd then stop somebody else's child from being abused, because more than likely it's not just that one child he's abusing. When you don't say something, you are creating a list of victims.
And our responsibility to our children as parents, as mentors, as professionals, educators, and everything in between is to make that child feel trusted and protected, to ensure trust in that relationship and make that child feel protected.
Now, let's go back to the anatomy of abuse. You know, how do we define abuse? At what point do we say it's abuse? I mean, we talk about, you know, the very many indicators or excuses that people give for abusing. You know, oh, she was too intoxicated, her skirt was too short, she invited that sort of thing. I mean, there are certain times as well, and we have to be honest about that discussion, where, you know, you have women most of the time leading men on, and then you get to this point when all of a sudden you want to say no. I know that people say, yeah, no is no. We understand that. You know, but then do women as well have a responsibility not to lead that horse to the well?
Okay, let me. Should I?
Yes.
First?
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Let me have it.
She may not intentionally at that point say, "I'm going to lead you on," and then say, "Oh no." That's usually not what happens, right? It gets to a point where I feel uncomfortable, and when I feel uncomfortable, I have a right to say no. It doesn't matter how far we've gone or what relationship we have. I can be your husband, your wife. If I say no because I'm uncomfortable, it doesn't matter where we are, it's no. If it crosses that boundary, it's rape or sexual assault, depending on what happens after.
There's a big question of consent, and there's a big question of responsibility as well. The responsibility of love in a relationship, that's responsibility and respect that you'd have in an intimate relationship. You would hope that if you and your wife or your partner, whichever way it goes, are together sharing an intimate moment, no matter how intense it may be, if you are really in tune with each other and you understand this person, both man and woman alike,
right?
And if he or she says, you know what, honestly, I'm not in the mood, I'm not able, this is what, if they show it or verbalize it, and especially if they verbalize it, it is your responsibility to that relationship dynamic to just stop. I mean, hey, it's sex, it's going to be there tomorrow. If you have that relationship, and if you don't, what are you doing there? Do you have consent? Do you have that respect? Do you have that responsibility to that person? Do you care? Because what happens, what happens is, you see, we can say it like that and we can laugh at it on the surface, but what happens psychologically to someone, the long-term effects of this thing is very serious. So it's not something to laugh at. It's something to really take into consideration. It's something to discuss. It's something to understand. It's something to educate ourselves. We're in the field and we get educated every day. There's always some piece of it that we didn't realize that we should have touched. Oh my God, what about this person? What about this person as it relates to that? What about this and STDs? What about this and the disabled children? What about this and and
Elderly
transgender,
people,
what about this,
yeah.
and elderly people, what about the, I mean, I can just go on and on and on, you know. So it's not, it's something to, it's really something for us to all do the research and take up the active responsibility for.
Now you spoke about a study earlier on in your presentation. That study, what did it reveal to you?
Well, primarily that a lot of people don't report, and that the reasons for not reporting are due to shame, lack of support, lack of resources, and confidentiality. A lot of people believe that if I come to you as a counselor and I say, listen, I've been sexually assaulted, that you're then going to tell Velika, and Velika's then going to tell Tom, and Tom's going to tell, and before you know it, the entire community is going to know. And because of the nature of this, it's a heavy thing to carry. When you finally work up the strength to tell somebody, you don't want to have to worry about it getting out. You want to know that I can sit and talk to this person and feel trusted. And they have not felt that. That was one of the main themes. We found that people that came forward have not felt that level of ease in trying to find somebody that they could talk to, and so they've preferred to not speak.
And we knew that within ourselves based on our own experiences, based on the fact that we had certain systems of support and still were not able to use them effectively. And I mean, even when Sue and I decided and committed to each other that we would start this and that we would do this, it took me so long to actually produce my story, to actually come out. I took almost a year to write it, because what I went through internally putting it on paper was, I can't even explain what I went through, but I finally got it out. And even now, I mean, we have each other, we have our support system, we've been working through our own internal issues, and of course with the type of work that we do, we get revisited with it every day, so that has its place as well. But confidentiality in our society on a cultural level is a big thing as well, and that's why. And then so of all the things that she mentioned about the study, I think that's one of the biggest things, and I'd like to actually take a moment to ask all of the people who are employed in these areas in our society, in the institutions that do exist as caretakers, as mentors, and as professionals, to really consider that you're in a society, we're very small, and respect each other's confidentiality, respect the client's confidentiality. It is not funny. These people, we need help.
And it's not a story to be shared,
Yeah.
you know. We find that, and a lot of people said that they found that people that they did speak to were eager to just hear the story. So tell me what happened. It was like this was a soap opera. Not, well, this is something difficult for me to talk about.
Painful.
And it's painful. But, oh, who did it to you? So that I can then call and tell somebody else.
Right.
Or it's just for my own amusement. So now I know Tom is that kind of person. But,
And then,
you know,
you re-victimize by either dropping the ball or spreading that person's sensitive information. We're not even talking about actually the situations, the horror stories that happen where police or doctors or any other form of caretakers, nurses, and everything in between actually do rape as well. When people do report, these things do happen. But I'm just talking about the very quote-unquote subtle violation and re-victimization that happens when you don't take up the full long-term responsibility of a caretaker when someone reports that story to you.
Now, I mean, this topic is so interesting, but we have to take a break now. I want to know when we come back what victims can do and what resources are available. You mentioned some of them, but then in our society we know that some of the agencies charged with taking care of victims do not work as they should be working. So we'll talk about that when we come back on Newsmaker Live. We're discussing sexual abuse with Sue and Velika. Stay with us.